All right, and so I believe we are live on Facebook now. So first and foremost, everyone, welcome. Welcome to the first year undergraduate webinar. I am your moderator for today, Dr. Corey Still. And first off, we just want to welcome all of our guest panelists and my colleague here, Arlen Yazi, as we kind of just take this time today to discuss and talk through some issues and best practices and strategies around transitioning to college, transitioning to our first year. We know that oftentimes this is the time right now, a lot of our students are going to college. They're transitioning, leaving home, transitioning from high school into college, and it can be a difficult time. And I am so honored to be sharing this space with the panelists here who have just a wealth of combined knowledge. And so on behalf of American Indian graduates, we all say thank you. And to all of our listeners, both live here in the Zoom webinar and those that might be listening via Facebook, we just say thank you all for just being with us here today. And as we go through today, just some quick kind of housekeeping rules. Please feel free to ask questions. Please feel free to post questions in the chat. We have staff that are also monitoring the Facebook Live. So if you are watching us via Facebook Live, please feel free to ask questions there, and they will be sent to us and we'll be able to answer them live here on screen. So for those that may not know who I am, my name is Dr. Corey Still. I am currently serve as the Director of Student Programming and Research for American Indian Graduate Center. I'm a member of the United Kituwa Band of Cherokees from Oklahoma and have been with the company now for a little over 2 years. And so I'm extremely excited to be here and lead this conversation and get to learn from these amazing women here that are with me. So I'm actually going to turn it over to my colleague, Ms. Arlen Yazi, to introduce herself as well.
Yeah, Arlen Yazi and not what the net coaching initially. She him bushes chin, Chisha my name is Arlen Yazi, and I am the Rising Native Graduates Program Manager with AIGC. Welcome, and thank you so much for attending our webinar. Just a little bit about me. I grew up on the Navajo Reservation. I was born in Tuba City, was raised in Shiprock, New Mexico, and I attended undergrad at Fort Lewis College, where I was able to complete a degree in fine art. From there, I was able to get into the nonprofit community-based organizations and really spend a lot of my career focusing in on college access and success for students in the Phoenix area, in San Antonio, and now with AIGC. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Arlen. And so before we get into our panelists here, I do want to talk just a little bit about each one because there's so much to say in their accomplishments that they've done. And so I do want to just acknowledge them and read their bios before I ask them to provide any more details or any other way that they'd like to introduce themselves. So our first panelist this morning is Antonia Belindo. Antonia is a citizen of the Kiowa tribe and is affiliated with the Pawnee, Diné, and Choctaw nations. Antonia graduated from the University of Oklahoma in 2015 with a Bachelor's of Fine Arts focusing in studio arts with an emphasis in painting and printmaking. Currently, she serves as the coordinator of American Indian Programs and Services for the University of Oklahoma Student Life. Antonia serves in this role as the advisor to the American Indian Student Association and the AT&T Scholarship Fund. Antonia's desire is to further advance relevant causes and initiatives for all Indigenous identifying students through programming, campus engagement, leadership development, and community building. Ashley Tso represents both Navajo Nation and Iranian descent. She is currently the enrollment manager at Southwestern Indian Polytechnical Institute. As a student affairs professional of over 7 years, Ashley has been working in the field since her transfer days at Haskell Indian Nation University. Her focus is on Indigenous student recruitment and outreach, retention, and student success. Her advocacy for her students stems from being an advisor and mentor for numerous student organizations and councils, and more recently through her work as a higher education administrator. Ashley holds a master's degree in higher education administration from the University of Kansas, a bachelor's degree in Indigenous and American Indian Studies from Haskell Indian Nations University, and an associate degree in social work from Haskell Indian Nations University. Ashley currently resides in Albuquerque, New Mexico with her son, Xander Ray, and dog Sunshine. And then last, but certainly not least, is Chenoa Scippio, who is also an AIGC scholar. Chenoa is an American Indian Graduate Center scholar. She's currently a fourth-year undergraduate student at the University of New Mexico, where she is double majored in population health and Native American studies. She just finished an internship at the Albuquerque Area Indian Health Board, and she also serves as the Southwest Regional Representative for the United National Indian Tribal Youths Incorporated National Executive Committee. With skills learned in her degree programs, internships, and extracurricular activities, Chenoa aspires to achieve social justice in Indigenous communities as a public health professional concentrating in community health and health behavior interventions. After graduation, she plans to pursue a Master's of Public Health at UNM. So thank you all so much for joining us. Thank you so much for being here. And like I said, I know these were our formal, the formal bios, but I also wanted to provide space for all three of you just to tell us a little bit more about yourself, and then also maybe just a little bit about your own college journeys. So we'll start with Antonia.
Thank you, Corey. So, Deonde Batsan, thank you all for coming today. Honde Onde Bobo. I can't see your faces, but the faces that I do see, I'm so honored and thankful that we're all here together to join in this conversation. My name is Antonia Belindo. My Kiowa name is Aim Aldagun'a. I originally grew up in Southwest Oklahoma among my Kiowa people, but I'm also heavily involved with my Choctaw family and my Pawnee family and Diné family. So I just, again, want to say welcome to today. Thank you so much for allowing time and making space for all of us to share with you. And I hope that each of us are able to take away something from this moment and from some of these conversations with everyone. So a little bit more about myself is that my college journey may be, resemblance or may have a resemblance to others. But this is what the whole purpose for today is, to take something from that, see the different correlations that we have and those connections, that you're not alone as a student, and all of our experiences are relevant as Native and Indigenous to the place that we're from. So if anything, we're all here for you, and we're someone that you can always come to from this point on, and always have our contact info to be shared far and wide. So thank you again for having me today.
Thank you so much, Antonia, and thank you again for being here with us. Ashley, we want to give you a little bit of space here.
Thank you. Yata shike edo shidane pohegi nishlan sedane bashishi ki ani dashiche sedane dashinella. Hello, everybody. It's great to see and have you here today. I have, I'm so excited to join you all and to meet these amazing individuals. My name is Ashley. I'm originally from Wichita, Arizona. My family's from there, but I grew up in the Salt Lake Valley. And, everywhere I've gone and lived, I've been in about 5 states in the last 10 years or so. I've always managed to make family where I'm at to help me feel grounded and ready to tackle whatever's happening. So we want to thank you again for having us here, and I look forward to sharing and giving you all some good information. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ashley. And again, we appreciate you taking the time and sharing space with us today. And Chenoa.
Yata shikero shidana Chenoa Scippio in share bitahni nashlan nakai hijini bashichin nashi hinashicero nakai hijini nashinella nashiri de nasha beldi dasimante nishta. Hello everyone, my name is Chenoa. And I'm just very excited to be here to answer some questions and maybe to give you guys some advice, because the journey in college is not always the easiest, but I think like having some tips and like hearing from people who've done it or are doing it is going to be really helpful. So thank you for having me today.
Thank you for being here. And again, so as we're kind of going through, for all those that are joining us within the Zoom webinar, please feel free to use the chat. Please let us know where you're from. If you're currently in school, where you're at, if you're getting ready to move in, you know, where you're going to be living or what institution you're going with. So please feel free to post that in the chat, or post, you know, any questions that you have, as we kind of just have a very fluid conversation today. And then for those that are listening with us via Facebook Live, if you have any questions, or again, feel free to post where you're from, feel free to post where you're going to school at. And if you have any questions that come up as we have this conversation, please feel free to post those. And we have some of our staff members and our team members on standby monitoring those chats on Facebook and feeding us those questions. So we promise we will try to answer every question that comes through our way, okay? So as we kind of start this conversation here, so the main topic is really first year undergraduate experience, right? We're talking about, for those who are transitioning from high school to college, we know that that's happening a lot right now. A lot of institutions were already in our first, second, or third week. There are some institutions that are getting ready to start their first week. And so the first kind of topic that I want to talk to is really about transitioning to college. And my first kind of question I want to pose to everyone here is, what is one piece of advice that you would want to share with students about transitioning from high school to college? So if there was one piece of advice that you wish you had, or that you've had and you're like, I've seen this over and over again, or that, you know, you've thought about when you were a first year student, what is that one piece of advice that you would like to share with other students? And we'll just open it up to Arlen, if you want to start us off there, and then we'll just kind of go throughout the board here.
Yes, so my first big piece of advice is there will be an adjustment period. So give yourself grace. I think that a lot of undergraduate students don't, or go into college thinking that they know everything, but you actually will continue to learn things as you progress through your undergraduate education.
I think that's really important. Like, it's not going to be a set time limit, right? It's not going to be, okay, the first week and I'm transitioned in. You know, I think as I reflect back on mine, I was transitioning. There were some things I was transitioning all the way into my sophomore and even junior year, thinking I knew everything. And I was like, come across a new situation, I'd be like, oh wait, like this is something new. Like, I think that's one of the kind of, for me at least, one of the good or scary things about college is that there's always something new that we're running up against. But then again, there's always something new, and I might not know what's going on. Anyone else want to share some advice or anything like that?
I think along the lines of what Arlen had said when we were talking about the time frame, also understanding your wants and desires of your degree, and what that purpose really looks like. So I feel that a lot of first year students might come in. Yes, we have our academic advisors to really put us into the right classes in our degree track, but thinking about the reality of some of those interests that you have and really putting those as priorities. Don't be afraid to say that you're not interested in one area, because if anything, we get into that point of like, why am I here? Why do I keep taking this class? I really don't like this. It's kind of torture. But understanding your wants and what you want to see to come out of it. So don't be afraid to maybe switch things up when you start talking to new people or having those new experiences, because when you encounter them and you want to take away from that experience, be open to what maybe someone else is having, you know, in their own positive way, or maybe even a negative way, and steering clear from that. And just not having to feel completely stuck in a one track. This is your one degree. Same way with the timeline. You know, feel free to be fluid with that and, you know, explore while you're there. So that would be my advice.
Yeah, I agree with that. I wish somebody had told me to make sure I'm doing it for myself and going into something that I want for myself. I been an advisor and I've worked with students, and I wanted to like, you know, one of the questions I've always tell them is this what you want, or is this what somebody wants for you? So make sure that you're going towards what brings you happiness, and be kind to yourself, because your interests may change, and it's okay to change your major, but don't do it in your senior year, right? Like start it off a little sooner. I think I've changed my major at least 3 or 4 times before I landed on my bachelor's from Haskell with the Indigenous American Indian Studies, and I saw what I could do with it, and that's what I was like, okay, this is where I want to go, this is what I want to do. And I was like kind to myself, because it did take a while for me to kind of get to that, see that bigger picture. So start with the big picture, work your way backwards, and make sure what you're doing is what brings you happiness and what you want, and slowly work your way there, because it takes time.
Well, I also think, we talk about that bigger picture. I think someone may have mentioned it before, but we talk to students all the time, and I know it was true in my case, but most students decide to change their major at least like 3 times. I know the major I started out with in college is not the major I graduated with, because me and a class called macroeconomics came into clash with each other, and so we found out me and math quickly needed to be divorced. So that's what I said. It's okay if you start readjusting and rethinking. What am I doing? Like, are you passionate? Actually, I like what you said there. Are you passionate about what you're going to be doing? And this is something that you're going to be driven to push forward, because sometimes that might not come your first year. Sometimes you want to explore and take different classes from different areas. And so I think those were both great points. Chenoa, I wanted to give some time to you as well.
Yeah, I actually had like kind of a little bit something different to say. One piece of advice I would say is just to be ready, I guess, for anything, because the pace of classes in college is so much different than in high school. Whereas like in high school, you'd spend like a week or 2 weeks on one thing, and then in college you spend maybe a day or one class period on it, and it just sometimes it doesn't feel like enough time. And so going back to what everyone else had to say, like it's okay to be unsure, or it's okay to feel like it's just not working out. And that's where you have the freedom to like pick and choose and explore like different majors or different careers, to see where like your interests really lie and what you're actually good at, because that's what's going to make college fun for you.
I think we just had a comment from the live, and it was, don't check your res upbringing at the door. I'm summarizing it here, but I think that's also a big key. Is sometimes we think we have this notion that as Native people, when we enter higher education, we have to check our Native identity at the door, and I think that's also can be extremely hard for our students who come from high Native communities and high tribal background areas, and making sure that as we walk through here, we really kind of balance our identity, and we claim our identity and claim it in spaces that we're here, and we're engaging in these spaces that were never meant for us. And so I think that was a really good point to kind of bring up too. Anything else? Any other advice? Like any other conversation pieces as we're talking about, what are some transitional advice or best practices as we go into this? I think even as we talked about our Native identity, or even transitioning to the dorms, we have students who are leaving for the first time from their homes. Sometimes this is the first time they've ever lived away from home. What advice you all might have about transitioning to the dorm life?
I was going to mention something about that too. So one of the pieces that I always like to reinforce with students and really kind of I guess, encourage them in that way is understanding there's a large amount of excitement when you transition to any university, any institution like this, but also understanding our histories of ourselves as individuals, maybe within our families and our lineage and our ancestries, and how education in our own history has impacted who we are within our own lives, respectively as individuals. But knowing that a transition from you're removing your home, or you're removing yourself from a place that you identify as your home into a new area, again, like Corey had mentioned, that wasn't designed for you. Even in a dorm setting, that itself is to me, a weird, strange concept. Love it, whatever, it's a great experience, but it's also something that's not necessarily tied to the way that we encounter the world around us a lot, that may or may not be familiar. That being said, going into maybe a classroom or even going to a student event that is, held after the sun goes down. And so how do you feel about walking from spaces back and forth, maybe by yourself, or even being in buildings where all the blinds are open, open to everything in the evening time. And so what does that transition really look like? Understanding that you have that right, like Corey said, to not give up those values, to not give up those boundaries that you have, either spiritually, physically, mentally with yourself, because that is who you are. Ultimately, education is just going to be a resource for you to be exactly who you were created to be. It's just emphasizing and allowing you to think critically in a different way, but not ever forgetting the original way that you have been taught. So I would say that would be one of my biggest things, is being honest with ourselves that is a difficult piece in that transition.
I would also say that's really, those are really great points. And transitioning, you're leaving home, you're kind of like excited to be like on your own. You're in the res halls, you're meeting new people, and even though you're matched up with like a roommate, or you're in a living learning community, whatever that decision is, it still can be lonely at times, right? Like when I first went to high school, my first roommate, I wasn't keen on her, I'm not gonna lie. And so it was hard for me because I was really excited to like, build this bond with my roommate. And then I was just like, but then I was like, it's okay. Like I found other people. And like I said, like my first thing I like to do is build community. I will find an auntie or a grandma, or, somebody I can like joke around with who reminds me of somebody from home, because that helps that helped me not to feel so lonely. Even though like I felt lonely, I'm like, teary-eyed. I wanted to make sure that I still had that kind of tie. So when I went to high school, we had a dinner club, and I joined the dinner club. And it was a little hard because my tribal identity was questioned at first, but I didn't let that get me down. And it was really good because there was some elder Navajos in there who, I was able to really connect with. And then Pasco is just such a good community. There's families that work there who've gone to school there, and they really help bring you, make sure that like you're having dinner at their houses. They'll bring you food. They'll have activities. They're really good community builders. So when you leave home, you can get lonely, which makes you want to go home. But if you're able to take the time to just make one connection or two, and with a staff member or another upperclassman, like definitely, try to do that. It'll make you feel less lonely. And as you go through your undergrad experience, you'll be able to start building your own community, and you'll be able to start being that person for a first year student or a transfer student who might be feeling the same way. So definitely, find people who make you laugh and who will feed you.
Like Ashley, I was fortunate enough to go to a college that had a Native American center. But I also had the unique opportunity of going to college with my mom. So it was a huge difference of moving into a dorm, but also experiencing what it was like to have a roommate and learning to build that relationship. But also knowing that my mom was cross campus in family housing, and anytime I wanted to eat a good meal, that's where I walked to. But just also knowing, like, in those specific communities, specifically at like Fort Lewis, you have a space that you can go to and just meet others. I was at the Native American Center every day. It is where I studied. It is where I wrote papers. If I was looking for someone to talk to, it really was as simple as walking in there, sitting down next to someone and asking where they're from. I think that in those spaces, you have the opportunity to just explore others and really engage in like what they enjoy doing, and really just building yourself into a lot of those activities. But if you're transitioning into a dorm, that's definitely a huge move of just knowing that you have to prepare, you have to buy a lot of things, you have to get to know your RA, you've got to get familiar with just a lot of the policies that come into living in a dorm. I'm a planner. I will read everything. I want to say that I went and read that manual like over and over and over and was like, can I use this thumbtack in the wall? but knowing that you do have the opportunity to create a space that is yours, and that's something that I definitely encourage everyone to do, is create your space or your dorm space to what reflects home. Because I will say that was the one thing that really helped me just build that connection. And the moment I walked into my dorm, I felt like I was at home.
Wonderful, wonderful. Any other last thoughts or anything like that before we kind of move on to the next topic area? So I think the next topic area is one that I know I struggled with. And I think it's a testament when I say what it takes to become a doctor is just persistence, okay? That's what it takes. Because the next area we're going to be talking about is study habits. And Lord Creator knows it. Some of y'all knew me in those days. I did not have the best study habits. And so I think it's crucial that that's a piece that we talk about when we talk about transitioning in our first year experience, is understanding study habits and creating successful study habits. Because for some students, it's going to come real easy. For some students, it's going to be able to come, okay, I could do this. But for others, it may not be this easy. It may be a little bit difficult. You may try multiple different methods or multiple different techniques before you find something that really clicks with you. And sometimes it may take, I had friends that were rock star academics in high school, and they took that for granted, and it took them getting their first C or their first D to realize, okay, I can't wait until the night before to write a paper, or wait till the day of to study for this test and expect to pass the same way that I would in high school. So the first question I really want to just again ask of you all is, what are some useful study habits that maybe you've used or that you have seen work with students, or that like I said, you even learned about in one of your professional areas that you would suggest for students to use? So what are a couple of these study habits, or maybe study models, or we know there's a lot of different methods out there, but what are some suggestions you might have? And then we'll go ahead. Okay, we'll go ahead and start with Ashley. She unmuted first, so.
Oh, is that what it is? So I don't know where I picked this one up. I know it was through my undergrad. this technique was like knowing when you're at your peak, when you retain stuff. And so it was really like kind of doing some like internal understanding of, I am not a morning person. If you know me, I'm not a morning person. If I don't have coffee in me, I like just don't come near me. And I'll listen to you, but I don't know how much I'll retain. And so I was like, I can't be taking classes at 8 a.m. This is not my best thing. I can't be studying early before my class starts. If it's at 11, I can't get up and like study before then. Because I've tried everything Corey just mentioned. I was doing at one point, and it wasn't until I don't know, sometime in my undergrad that I finally figured out like my flow and like where I felt more like alert and I could retain stuff. And that's when I used my study time. Before and a little bit afterwards is when I would try to schedule my classes, to make sure that like leading up to like that peak time of studying, I still had like that ability or that time to do it. And I did that through my graduate school, and it changed over time. In grad school, I was at, Perkins in Lawrence, Kansas with a couple of friends at 2 o'clock in the morning, drinking coffee, eating fries, and writing papers, because that was like my peak time. And I felt like I was grooving, I was typing, getting it out, and I was like alert. And then I'd wake up and go to work the next morning. So it was really good. I did that. And then the other thing one of my mentors told me when I was in grad school is kind of like a reward system. So like set up, small milestones and then reward yourself with like, Facebook or Twitter or ice cream run, coffee run maybe, and then come back and do it again. So, her suggestion really helped too, because then I didn't feel like I was stuck to my computer, like I have to get this done in like 3 hours. It was like, all right, I'm gonna write 4 pages. After 4 pages, I'm gonna step away, I'm gonna go do something, I'm gonna come back, I'm gonna check those pages out, just review them, see where those edits need to be made, and then I would just like keep doing that. So I'd have like small milestones and doing it, and I still do that with my work. Like I'm like, all right, I'm gonna work and do, because I'm writing a manual, and through that I'm like, I'm gonna get 5 pages in, and then I'm gonna switch over and I'm gonna check emails. I don't know why that's my reward, but it is. And so like whatever that reward is for you, and then just don't feel like you have to be there, because when you feel like you have to do something, you kind of like, oh, I don't want to do it. But if you're like, oh, but if I hit this, then I can go like run a mile. Whatever your reward system is, that was one thing that they told me, and it's been helpful. I still use that system. So that's my study recommendation.
I think that's a good one. Find something that you can reward yourself with. I mean, but that also takes discipline. It takes discipline to be able to say, okay, this is what I will reward myself with. Anyone else?
Yeah, I think I'll just follow up Ashley's with pretty much the exact same thing of finding your own system, finding your own style, and being honest again with yourself. Like she said, understanding your own habits. I was / am sometimes the biggest procrastinator. I do think also that has to bring up a piece of vulnerability with my own self of like understanding what some anxiety and how that plays out into maybe the way that I approach tasks each day. And that may be heightened when it comes to transitioning to college, and maybe we just don't know that. So understanding a mental health resource out there that you might be able to really talk through and be honest about some of your habits or the way that you approach classes, but then taking that as a form of making sure that we feel we're empowered with that ability to accomplish what's in front of us. We already have it. We already have these skills. We already have this knowledge. It's just compacting it into a different system that truly wasn't designed for us and our understanding. And I think just being honest with a lot of those ways. So my biggest challenge was mathematics. I walked into class already feeling like a failure every day. And so my encouragement to every single person is that even though you're studying and even though you're accomplishing all of your work, understand that it doesn't necessarily have a reflection on how you are as an individual and your abilities that you have. Like I said, you're just compacting it into a different system that was not designed for a lot of our ways of thinking and approaching the world around us. And so in understanding that relationship, feel that empowerment and feel that ability to go up to your instructor the first day or any day and say, hey, I'm introducing myself. This is where I'm from. I understand this connection, this math theory. I don't understand why we do it, but help me find out the why and how this is important beyond just it's a problem I'm encountering and I can't get through it. And a lot of times being honest with your instructors where you might be needing help or advice in studying that subject, that's all they really want to hear. They're there for you, truly. So do not feel, I would say, discouraged to approach them. They're not there to make your lives horrible or miserable by giving you more work or wanting to fail you. They are there to help you. Unfortunately, some may or may not be more willing to do that. It's a personal choice on that end. However, you have that mindset, you have that readiness, and you have those emails set up. You've made those communications to say, this is how I need to study better for this subject. What can I do? But I think that's one thing for me, just being honest. And I can't remember, I wrote something down. I think, again, just staying accountable with yourself, creating those connections within your community too, and finding a literal space on campus that you feel comfortable, that you feel safe, that you feel whoever is beside you may have the same class or may not, but there's someone who can just be a resource there so you don't feel alone during those study times.
I want to add just the value of creating a note system. And by that is like when you're reading through text, creating a system that will allow your brain to process the information that you've read without forgetting it. And it could be as simple as something that's very important, putting an exclamation point right next to that paragraph. So then that way, when you have to visually flip back into your books, you know what is there and you know that it's very important. I know that saved me a lot of time in college when I was reading through textbooks and trying to remember important parts of just sections of the course itself. Another thing really is just holding yourself accountable, like having that space. If you need somebody to study with, find someone to study with. Or if you just need to hold yourself accountable, take some time to understand yourself and what works for you. Corey laughs about me, but I have a planner where I plan out my entire week of everything that I do. And that's, like Ashley said, that's my reward system. Every single Sunday, I sit down and I plan out my entire week of knowing what I'm going to do, what I need to get, like everything that's a priority for that week that needs to get done, things that can get put on a back burner. But also knowing, like, when I plan all of this stuff, I also incorporate ways to take care of myself. And if I need to schedule time to go for a run, if I need to write down the fact that I need to drink some water, I write down a lot of that information. So then that way it's something I get the reward of check marking off my list, highlighting it a different color, just something that makes me show that I am taking those steps to really hold myself accountable.
Yeah, and one thing I think that I found that really works for me is like Antonia said, is to like actually find like a physical space that works for me, because like being in the dorms, it's cool and everything, but it's so easy for me just to like lay down or like to do something else or to like find something. to get distracted by it. And so I think actually going someplace and sitting down and like having my to-do list really works for me. And then it's also so satisfying for me to like cross everything off and like feel so accomplished and like so like feel good about myself that I got everything done that day. So
I think I just wish I was that organized. I'll be honest with you. Like I feel so bad because she shows me her list. I'm like, oh, okay. But I definitely agree. You know, for me, staying in your dorm, if you're staying in your dorm, and I can't remember who told me this one time, if you're trying to study in the same area that your body knows this is where you sleep, you won't get studying done. I remember being my first year at the University of Oklahoma and trying to study on my dorm bed. And it was just so hard because I would like, oh, look, my TV, or oh, look, my phone, or oh, look, my computer went to Netflix or YouTube. How did that happen? And all of a sudden I'd be passed out, taking a nap, and I'd wake up like 3 hours later, like, oh, I forgot to finish this assignment. So I definitely agree with like finding, not only being organized, but finding that space that you can be comfortable in studying with and knowing that this is my study space. But I also think another key thing that we need to keep in mind that Ashley kind of mentioned was our time management skills. Making sure that we know, like, okay, like, and I think Arlen, you even talk about this when we talk about being organized, is making sure that we're managing our time wisely. Because I think that's something that I've worked with a lot of students on about really making sure that I manage my time and making sure I know I have enough time to study.
Yeah, one of the things I was going to say, and I think they just dropped it into the chat, but there are apps out there that you can silence your social media. You can, block websites for like an hour or two. And that was also very helpful for me when I was trying to be like, this is my focus time. This is study time. This is what we're doing, Ashley. And after I talked myself into studying, I would like block everything. And then I'd be like, all right. So if it wasn't like I reach this page 4 pages by this time, it was, oh, this unlocked. And now that's my reward system because I focused for X amount of time. And then there's something else I was going to say. Also finding like where, like what works best for you too. Because for me, studying where it's loud was very helpful. It helped me focus, which is why I was at Perkins. I couldn't study in the library. And then people were like, there's YouTube channels that you can like, it's like white noise, or, there's websites that are just like white noise. And that also helped me study too, because I just needed like the noise to feel like, I guess like I have FOMO, I guess would be the best way to put it. I just want to be in an area with other people, but I want to be by myself and get my work done. So yeah, there's apps out there to help you with your productivity, silencing things, putting things on pause. You don't have to delete any social media. You just have to, I mean, even our phones have it, right? Like we can go in and do that too. So just kind of adding that.
And as we kind of talk about, okay, some of you might be listening or you might be a parent or guardian of a student and you might not know what your study habits are. You can always go to the American Indian Graduate Center's webpage, so aigcs.org/students, and it will go to our student resource page. And when you navigate through our student resource page, we actually have spaces there that you can take quizzes to learn if you're a visual learner, if you're a kinetic learner, if you're an audio learner. So to help you come to understand like what helps you learn the best, whether it's listening to your lecture notes, whether it's actually seeing your lecture notes, whether it's moving. One of the things is I'm a kinetic learner, so I always have to have something in my hands, or something my hand always has to be moving or something for me to fully get what I'm trying to grasp and learn. But I do want to go ahead and switch over to another topic here, because I know we have about 13 minutes left here. And so again, if you're listening here live with us, please feel free to again, add to the conversation, drop your questions. If you're listening to us on Facebook Live, we have a couple of questions that I'm going to address here at the end. But if you have, again, just feel free to engage in this conversation. But I do want to jump into one of our last talking points here. And I think this is really critical when we talk about seeking resources on campus. And I think this is critical. And I like to talk about this specifically because, I know a lot of us have had these conversations externally off of here when we talk about how do we support our students, and especially when sometimes our students don't know how or don't feel comfortable asking for help. And so that's kind of the first question I want to ask is, well, we can just kind of ask this question together. Where do you suggest students go to seek out help on their campus if they need resources or things like that? Where would you suggest, or where have you gone on your campuses? And then also, what advice do you have for any students who might not be fully comfortable with asking for help? Whether that be, they were raised not asking for help, or it's a mentality they have, or they just might not want to appear like they don't know what they're doing because they may think that they're in college and they have to know everything. And we know that, no, you don't. Like that's part of college. You don't have to know everything. So where can students go for help, and what advice might you give to students who might be uncomfortable asking for help? And we're going to toss this. Chenoa, do you want to start us off here?
Yeah, so probably one thing that everybody is going to say is seek out your American Indian Student Services or Native American Center, whatever it may be called in your institution. But I find that they're especially even though it seems very intimidating, the advisors are actually kind of cool, and they understand a lot more than you think because they've been through it, and it's their job really to help you. And so don't feel embarrassed or don't feel uncomfortable asking for help for whatever. And I think that if you are uncomfortable or maybe hesitant asking for help, I always found it helpful to ask a friend first before an adult. I guess I'm an adult now, but it helps to ask a peer, I guess, before asking someone else. But don't be scared.
I was just going to say how we had said reaching out to some student services that are American Indian or Indigenous Native based for students is great. Some places may not be as strong or as broad when it comes to what those services look like. And I would just say, if you are able to find someone or even ask again, an instructor and see if they have any information. We would hope that our student affairs and higher education professionals can direct our students to find that individual that might be able to relate to them or help them, whether it's in their department, within their major, or just maybe across campus. So I know that one thing that I would try to remind everyone is that college is not a competition. And really, there's nothing that you are here to prove other than your own personal kind of accountability when it comes to what you would like to see come out of your classes and what you experience. And so that doesn't mean to put it back all on students, but it does mean that I don't want anyone to ever feel that if you do ask for help, that somehow it makes you any less of a qualified student, who's sitting next to you, or maybe your friend. Or if you do ask your friend for anything, whether it's a snack or just some advice on how to approach this situation, that you're in competition with them. I think with GPAs, with that number, that system, it can kind of get us in that mode of thinking. But really, every single person, down to the student financial person, down to anyone in housing or maintenance, they are literally here for students. That is the whole purpose of when it comes to these institutions. Students are our job. This is what we're here for. So everyone's here for you. Just try to remember that. Some may not be. We'll just be honest, but.
Yeah, I agree with what everybody has said. I think for me, I still have a hard time asking for help and guidance. And kind of like Chenoa said, I go to a peer before I go to an adult. Um, somebody I've made a good connection with that I feel comfortable going to, even though they may not be like the person, like the actual knowledge holder, they do hold knowledge, right? So if I have like a quick question, I run to one of my sisters. I'm like, hey, how do I, X, Y, and Z? And they'll, give me input, and then they'll be like, they'll redirect me as well. Um, and like Antonia said, we're here to help. I love helping students. It's one of my like favorite things to do. I will, like I've mentioned before, I don't know if it was with the panelists or when we were doing this, but I have like random knowledge, and I really like sharing the random knowledge. I like to connect people to other people, and so, you know, in student affairs, that's what we're here for. We're here to guide you, to give you the tools to help you how you need it. And if we can't do it, we'll find somebody who can help you. And we're still going to be there, as much and involved as you want us to be. So definitely, go to people you know. If you're building your community and you've made that really good connection, even just with one person that you feel comfortable talking to, they probably hold those connections for you as well. They can direct you, and I'm positive they'll probably be there with you as long as you want them to be for whatever the issue or question might be. So don't feel uncomfortable, even though you will be, but feel confident in going to your people. So.
I think we had Gavin made a comment as well from our Facebook. So he's joining us via Facebook Live. And he makes Gavin makes a really good point talking about a great program that students may be able to outreach is any TRIO programs that institutions have. So TRIO programs there may have, they're very inclusive of Native people and Native students. So be on the lookout for some TRIO programs. They may not be specifically for Native students, but they are also there to serve underrepresented students on campus. So that's a great comment. So thank you for that, Gavin. And, I think as we're kind of wrapping up here, you all have made some wonderful points. And I want to just give you all just one last chance, one last opportunity to maybe speak on some advice that we may have not, because there's a lot of things, there's only so much we can talk about in a very open conversation like this. And we know there's so much more when we talk about transition and trying to help our students. And so I'd like to just kind of offer up some space here for any last piece of advice, or if there was something that we didn't get to cover today that you're very passionate about talking to, or is something that you see students struggle with, that you'd want to kind of offer up some anti-wisdom here. I think we're going to rename this webinar the anti-wisdoms and Corey, as Antonia said before we started the webinar. But I just want to offer some space here for you all just to share some of your knowledge.
I'll kick it off. You can't shut me up. I think one thing, I wish I was told, and I try to tell students when, I work with them, is to be kind to yourself, and it's your path. We're not, they try to get you to complete school in 4 years, and then you're going to go on to your master's and so on and so forth. But definitely be kind to yourself. Don't stress yourself out for not being at the same place somebody else is that started the same time you started. I took a year off between high school and undergrad. I took another year off between undergrad and grad school, and now I'm taking 10 years off before I start my EDD. So, I mean, you have to make sure that You're not, Antonio touched on it, you're not competing against other people, and um, just know yourself, know your pace. If you need to take a break. It's okay. It'll be there. Come back. But know your limits. Like if you take more than 5 years, sometimes you have to retake a math class. So just kind of know that stuff. But definitely be kind to yourself. Be kind and know yourself, and always, always reach out.
So I guess some of my advice, in the same way that Ashley, I think we all are somewhat all on the same page. Again, when you identify people either like ourselves or anyone who has been through the process of receiving any type of degree in education, we've all went through that experience as a student. We've all had to find those ways and have all had to navigate in some way. And so if you find a native resource on campus, even if it's, just someone you can identify with, but maybe have no connection with other than your one interaction, don't be afraid to lean on that. Don't be afraid to rely on that. I would say, again, know yourself, know your wants and desires, what you would like to see. Like Ashley said, you're not on a time limit, but it is a short time that you do have within your classes and those experiences of, receiving whatever degree of completion that you are striving for. And so, yes, be engaged with the community, seek out those friendships and relationships, but also, ensure that you are receiving exactly what you want from this experience. It is yours. Have that autonomy. Don't be afraid to be confident and stand in that. Know that whenever you receive that degree, it's going to have your name on it. And that's something that no one will ever be able to take away from you. And so even if you can't find that encouragement, each of you that might be listening to us today, you have that here. Within our contact information within AIGC, if you're able to contact them, you can talk to any one of us, and we may be able to be those ones, like Ashley said, to connect you with someone on your own campus that might be able to help you, especially if you aren't wanting to take that first step. Maybe some of us, we have to understand our personalities are different. Some of us may not be as extroverted as others. That's okay. Again, that's what those types of anti-relationships are for. We're there when you need us, but also we respect you. You are an adult person. So that's the way that you would like to navigate it. But we are here for you at any time. So I guess that's my last piece of advice.
Yeah, and with that, just remember that your mental well-being is just as important as your physical well-being. And college is an exciting time, and it's a lot of different opportunities that may be coming your way, but don't feel like you have to say yes to everything, because it can be overwhelming sometimes, and it's okay to say no. It's okay to know your limits and to do what is best for you.
Arlen, is there anything you want to add before we kind of close out here?
Yes. Through all my years of working with students, I just would like every student to know that everyone in college is experiencing the exact same thing that you are, and that you really aren't alone. And sometimes it does take the initiative to go and ask a peer a question, or I know I spent a lot of time looking at like my college's websites of the types of activities that they provide and things like that. But it always took finding a friend to like go with me to find out what is it like to experience the rock climbing wall at the Student Life Center or things like that. It really is just, don't be afraid, be open, but just in reality, also know those limits and take advantage of your college education.
And so before we wrap up, we did have one comment I would like to address just real quick that came actually from one of our participants who's with us here in the live Zoom. So Lori asked, how do we engage students who aren't seeking assistance on their own? And one of the things I would just like to say to Lori is, and for anyone that's listening that may be a professional in student affairs or in higher ed, or who may, be that community auntie, or may be the actual auntie or uncle or someone of a college student, and that they might feel uncomfortable asking for help. Just talk with them. Be someone that they know that they can go to. Sometimes we can't force students to ask for help, but all they're waiting for is just someone to say, "Hey, I'm here. Here's what we offer. Here's the services that we provide." Or, "Hey, if you need someone to talk to, here we are." Just make sure if you are trying to engage with these students that you're doing so from a perspective that, hey, you don't have to come to me, but I want you to know I'm here for you. And I guarantee you that will go a long way, not just with Native students, but with just college students in general, because we know a lot of these issues. Like Arlen said, you're not going through this alone. And it's not just Native students that are going through this, all types of students, regardless if they were taught from a young age they were going to college and they have all this stuff. I guarantee you there's going to be things that they don't know and things that they're uncomfortable about and things that they're worrying just like you. And so I want to, again, thank all of our panelists, Antonia, Ashley, Chenoa, and Arlen. I want to thank you all out for just being here, sharing your knowledge with us, being here, and just sharing space and sharing your stories. And for all those listening, I know we did have a few questions come in regarding scholarships. So very briefly, we, as American Indian Graduate Center, we do offer scholarships at all levels, not just the graduate level. We offer undergraduate scholarships, graduate scholarships, and scholarships for professional students, so those that are going to do their PhD. So Ashley, when you said, I'm going for that EDD, we can help fund you there too. We have a person ask about scholarships for doctoral students. We have those scholarships as well. All those can be found under our scholarship website. So if you go to our general website at AIGCS.org, again, that website is AIGCS.org. You can find information about our scholarships, what's happening with American Indian Graduate Center, what's going on, the latest news, links to our American Indian Graduate magazine, links to some of our scholar and alumni profiles, and where you can also go to donate to help continue the work that we do here for our Native students across the country. For our Native students that are listening, or our professionals that are listening that might want to be able to access more resources, you can always go to AIGCS.org/students. And those are all going to be posted in the comment section of this Facebook Live. For those that are listening, we'll be sending out a one-page kind of handout that has all these different resources and things on it. But again, for our student resource page, that's AIGCS.org/students. And then if you want to contact our student programming and research team and you have questions, or you have questions about resources or anything like that, you can always directly email our programming team, and that is programming@AIGCS.org. And so we just, again, want to thank everybody for being here today. Thank you so much to our panelists. We just want to say thank you for all of our listeners, and we hope that you just go in a good way today. So thank you all.